The most awaited economic survey is here. Yes, we are talking about the Economic Survey 2024 and 5, which gives us a comprehensive overview of 2024 and what would be the outline of 2025. Hello and welcome to the in-news series of Drishti IAS. I am Ritu and today's session is about Economic Survey 2024 and 2025, and this session is important for your GS3 perspective. Along with the GS3, it is also important for your essay perspective and various other for your interview examination. So coming to the points of discussion part. So in today's session, first of all, we are going to discuss the news, then we'll have an idea about that what are the highlights of the economic survey, and in this whole discussion we are going to focus on the overview of the whole economic survey, and then we are going to discuss practice question for prelims. So before moving to the points of discussion or any kind of discussion part, you have to like, share and subscribe to this TI's channel. Moving towards to the news part. So the news is that today is the 31st of January, and on the 31st of January, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has tabled economic survey into the parliament. So this is the news which we are going to cover up in today's session, and before moving to the overview point, I want to briefly tell you that what is economic survey. So economic survey gives the overview that what we have done in 2024 and what would be the outline for the upcoming year. So it tells that what could be the blueprint for the next year and what lessons we can take from the previous year. So coming to the discussion part. So the discussion, before moving to the discussion part, I want to tell you an important announcement by Drishti IAS. Our Drishti IAS Noida address is C171/2 Block A Sector 15 Noida Uttar Pradesh, and nearest metro station is Noida Sector 15. And if you have any queries related to the ISGS Foundation course, you can call on to the number 87501. Our classes is available in both the medium, English medium and Hindi medium. These are the details of the classes. So coming to the discussion part. So the whole economic survey has been divided into 13 chapters. So we are going to briefly highlight about the chapter, that what chapter tells about. So here we are not going to have a lengthy discussion, but we can tell you the brief introduction of the each chapter. So the first chapter is about state of the economy getting back into the fast lane, and in this particular chapter they had discussed that we have faced various geopolitical tensions, and amid geopolitical tensions the manufacturing have been slowed down throughout the world. But amid all these uncertainties, India had performed well. So here we can see that because of the supply chain disruption, there was a weak external demand, and that's why we can see the slowdown in global manufacturing. In contrast, the services sector had performed well, and inflationary pressure also eased in most of the economies. So here we'll give an idea about that what happened in the global context. So in this amid global context, you can see that there was a Middle Eastern war, and right now it is on the verge of pacification. Then there is a problem with Russia, Ukraine, and few small fights are happening and conflicts are happening throughout the world. So that reflects on the economy also. But amid all these global context, India had performed well, and India displayed a steady economic growth, and India's real GDP is estimated to grow by 6.4% in financial year 2025. This is very much important for a prelims examination because they can ask. So I'll repeat for you. India's real GDP is estimated to grow by 6.4% in financial year 2025, and the global economy grew by 3.3% in 2023, and according to the IMF it is 3.2% and 3.3% for the 2025. So in 2024 it was 3.2%, and in 2025 it is 3.3%. So this is the overall scenario of the world, and amid all these data, we can see that we have a better economic growth rate and our GDP growth rate. So coming to this particular graph, so this graph is about the, despite of having global uncertainty, India's growth remains close to decadal average at constant prices. So the green one devotes the financial year and average growth over financial year 2015 to 2024. So here we have excluded to financial 21 and 22. So here we can see that what is GVA. So GVA is a part of the GDP, and GDP gives overall picture. So here we can see the agricultural GVA. So here in terms of percentage, it is around 4. Then industry GVA, it is around more than 5 but less than 6. Then services GVA, so it is around what we can see here, that around above 8. So here we can see the GVA and GDP. So this is about the what is happening around the GVA and GDP, and here we can see the sector wise. Now we'll discuss about the monetary and financial sector development, the cart and the horse. So this is the name of chapter 2. India's monetary and financial sectors have performed well in the first 9 months of financial year 2025. And if we'll talk about the bank credit has grown at a steady rate in the current financial year, and credit growth converges towards the deposit growth, and we'll also discuss the reason for that. So there has been a consistent improvement into the profitability of the scheduled commercial banks, as reflected in the fall in gross non-performing assets accompanied by the rise in capital to risk weighted asset ratio. So here we'll discuss that how there is a conversion of these kind of the things. So monetary developments we can see, and here we'll also focus on the monetary multipliers. So higher money multiplier as of December 2024 indicating higher liquidity in the market. So here this is the money multiplier, and here we can see that it has been seen the ups and downs, but here we can see that at the end of the year it has shown an upward tendency. Later it was declined, but still it is regaining. Here we'll see that what could be this meaning. So higher money multiplier indicates banking system is generating a greater money supply from the money provided by the central bank, which is RBI in case of India. And in India, recent efforts to promote financial inclusion have encouraged people to hold less cash in the hand, and they are moving towards the deposits. So here we'll discuss that what could be the reasons for this. So if we'll talk about the bank deposits, so here we can see that deposits in bank continue to rise at a double digit, which is 11.1%, and there is a shift towards high return schemes. More people are putting their money into fixed deposits rather than regular savings because they want high returns from that, and slower growth in bank credit. So earlier we had seen that there was a 15.2% as of the November 2023 data, but right now it has declined to the 11.8% as of the November 2024. So why it is happening? It is happening because of the tightening monetary policy by the RBI, in which people have this less tendency of borrowing because of the rising interest rate. So this is the reason we can see that there was a shift into the bank growth in the bank credit. So this is the thing. Now we'll discuss some more aspect, which is about the chapter 3. So chapter 3 is about the external sector getting FDI right. So here we'll discuss about the merchandise and services sector. So India's total exports having shown positive momentum in the first 9 months, reaching US dollar 602.6 billion, witnessing year-on-year growth of 6%. And this increase demonstrates resilience of export. And total imports during April to December reached US dollar 682.2 billion dollar. So here we can see that there was a growth of 6.9%. And if we'll talk about the balance between export and import, so we have a deficit of US dollar 69.7 billion. So this is about the export sector. Here we'll also discuss about some other aspect. So in this slide, we are going to discuss about the textile exports. So if you are going to discuss about the textile exports, here we have one column for the apparel, one for the semi-finished raw material. So yellow belongs to the apparel and another belongs to the semi-finished or raw textiles, and this is about the finished textile product. So this line is about the finished textile products. So what we have seen that we have shown a steady growth also here, but if we'll compare in terms of the previous year, so in 2022 we can see there was a growth in both the sector, but if we'll talk about the finished product, so it has constantly declined. So we need to think into this direction. So India's textile sector has been a matter of pride and strength because of its very elegant designs, and we have this what you can say culture of weavers. We have this unique print thing which has been very attractive for the world market. So that's why India textile sector is great in terms of that, and India is the 6th largest exporter of textiles and apparel globally. This fact is also important that they can ask that according to Economic Survey 2024 and 5, what is the rank of India's in terms of textile and apparel in terms of exports? So it is 6th, and textile and apparel industry contributes 2.3% of the GDP, 13% of the industrial production, and 12% of the exports. So here we can see that how apparel and what you can say semi-finished products are a strength to us, though we have to work on to this finished textile products. So coming to the ease of doing business initiatives for exporters. So an important area of focus is enhancing logistic efficiency to strengthen India's manufacturing and export capabilities. And here there will be the development of logistics hub, investments in infrastructure. We need policy reforms. And here they had also mentioned about the paperless EBRC system. And because of this EBRC system, we can see that the cost has been reduced by 2.5 million annually by over rupees 125 crore, and this particular thing has been benefited to the small what you can say business person. So this is about in that case we can see that we have this ease of doing business environment, and we are constantly working into that direction. So here we can see the performance of FDI's flows. So gross FDI flows, what we have seen, so we are on to the returning side. So we are trying to improve into this thing, though this number is not great. This is a data of April November 2024, and this is a data of April to November 2023. So this data cannot seem to be much great, but if we'll see from this data, which is 47 and 30, so this is 56 and 40. So in terms of that, we are on to a recovery phase. So this is a very positive sign in terms of the FDI, and FDI recorded a revival into the financial year 2025 with gross FDI inflows increasing from $47.2 billion in the first 8 months of the financial year. And here we are the growth on year-on basis is 17.9%. So we are on to the path of revival in terms of the FDI. So if we'll discuss about the chapter 4, so chapter 4 is about the prices and inflation, understanding the dynamics. So global inflation peaked at 8.7% in 2022, driven by the supply chain disruption because of the Russia-Ukraine war, because of the Middle East kind of the thing. So in India, retail inflation moderated from 5.4% in financial year 2024 to 4.9% in financial year 2025. So in terms of retail inflation, we are also into the recovery. If we'll talk about the food items, so food items constitutes about 2/5 of the consumer price index in India. Hence, consumer food price index is a significant determinant of the retail inflation. So we'll discuss some more points into it. So RBI and IMF have projected that India's consumer price inflation will progressively align towards the inflation target of financial year 2026. And in the December 2024, RBI's monetary policy committee report revised its inflation projection from 4.5% to 4.8% in financial year 2025. So we need to be very cautious in terms of inflation also, but that is not exceeding to the world level. So it is a concerning, but not up to that level. So here we'll discuss about the chapter 5. So chapter 5 is about medium term outlook. Deregulation drives growth. So to realize its economic aspiration of becoming Viksit Bharat by 2047, so India has this place where it will become Viksit Bharat by 2047, which is the centenary year of the India's independence, 1947 to 2047. So India needs to achieve a growth rate of the 8%, and right now we are between 6.4 and 6.5. So we need to have this much of the growth rate, though this is a very desirable and we can hope for the best. So this is the thing. So here we can see the IMF India's projection from financial year 25 to financial year 30. So here we can see that GDP at current prices. So in financial year 30, US dollar trillion, so it will be 6.3, 5.7, and exchange rate. So here we can see that 85.6. So all have shown the opposite and upward trend. So we are hoping best, but we cannot be sure that we can be Viksit Bharat 2047, but we are aiming to work into that direction. So coming to the chapter 6, chapter 6 is about investment and infrastructure, keeping it going. So the government is bringing in innovative framework for attractive investment in infrastructure project, and they are also trying to boost the brownfield project. And what are the brownfield projects? So the projects which has been already begun, and we need to add more skills, we need to add more fund, and we need to add more features to that particular thing. So we have already this national monetization pipeline, and which has been launched in August 2021. And this initiative laid down the framework for monetization policy and identified a pipeline of potential core assets with an indicative value of 6 lakh crore of the period financial 22 to 2025. So here we can see that through pipeline how economic survey is showing us and telling us that we are improving and we are investing into our infrastructural development. So if you'll see the investment and infrastructure, so overall capex, capital expenditure of the union government, so for the monthly quarter 1, so monthly average is in lakh crore, 0.6 lakh crore, and here 0.66 lakh crore for the 2024. So this is the thing. If it come to the sector wise, so sector wise, so ports and shipping we have 76%, civil aviation 69%, railways 67%, water and sanitation 57%, power 54%, roads 54%, rural development 52%, housing and urban affairs 49%. So we are investing more onto the ports and shipping, though we have to also work into the rural development thing. So if we'll talk about the so the economic survey has also told us and inform us that as the election process settled and electoral process, so after the result we can see that there was an increase in capital expenditure, and here we can see that so many ministry had utilized the 60% of their allotted budget. So here we are also showing a very positive trend into this, that we are improving our capital expenditure in terms of the infrastructural development. So we'll discuss the chapter 7. The chapter 7 is about industry, all about business reform. So in the global manufacturing space, high income countries have lost a significant part of their share during the last decade. And why they have done? Because upper middle income countries, mainly based on China's strength, so they had developed their manufacturing sectors. In amid all these uncertainties, India had managed to improve its share into the, what you can say, manufacturing sector. So here we'll discuss some more aspects of it. So near self-reliance in cement production. So here we have taken example of cement. We have another data related to the steel industry and other core areas, but here we have taken just example of cement in order to overview. So production of cement, here we can see, and here we can see the installed capacity in each geographic region. So north Rajasthan, Punjab, Haryana, Jammu and Kashmir, then central Madhya Pradesh. So what we can see that we are working into all our these kind of industries, especially the steel, cements, and the cement industry carries an environment footprint, and we are trying that by 2070 there will be a full control on carbon emissions of cement. So we are trying, and we have given target for all other sectors also. So coming to the next one is about the R&D policies, because India has this kind of loophole that we are investing a lot into the development of various other sectors, in fact our industries also, but we are investing less into the research and development. And here is the data. We can see the R&D expenditure as percentage of the GDP 2020. So if we'll see the India, so where India stands, so it is not even up to 1%, and whereas you can see the Israel, so Israel is around the 5%, then Australia is more than 3%, then if you see the Korean Republic, then it is around more than 4%, and if you see the United States, it is also around 4%, but Indian expenditure is very much less. So here this is a concerning situation, and we need to take care into this kind of direction. So the government R&D policies intervention is needed, and more contribution from the private sector is needed. The economic survey has highlighted that most of the expenditure is done by the government sector and government entities, so we need to have involvement of private sector in terms of the research and development. So coming to the next one is about the chapter 8, which is about the services, new challenges for the old war horse. So service value added accounts for about 62% of the global GDP, and service have been growth engine for the middle income countries like China, Thailand and India in the last decade. And here we can see the data of the different countries and what would be the GVA, service value added as per percent of the GDP in 2023 for decadal change. So here we can see and this is the change. So Argentina, here we can see it is around in terms of what you can say 50, then Brazil it is around 60, then India it is around 40 to 50, it is around 45 or 50 we can say that. So here what we can see that World Development Indicators of World Bank. So services GVA as percentage of the GDP, and highest we can see of the Thailand, which is more than the 60 thing. And if we'll see the nearby that what changes we have bought, so the China has seen a long jump in terms of the change, but India has seen a very slight jump. On the other hand, Thailand had also seen a jump. In terms of Russia, they had declined, and Indonesia had also shown the jump. Brazil had declined, Argentina had declined. So this is a very alarming situation for other countries, but India has a positive trend, but it is very slight. So here we have to walk that we need to increase our GVA. If we'll talk about the lower income countries and middle income countries, so if we'll see the upper middle income countries, so there is only jump in the upper middle income countries, whereas the lower middle income countries, lower income countries, higher income countries and overall world has shown the decline into this thing. So coming to the next one is about India's share in global services and merchandise exports. So here is the data of 2005. So we have in terms of percentage. So India's share in global merchandise exports 0.9, and if we'll see in the global services exports 1.9%. In 2014, the services was 3%, and what you can say global merchandise was 1.7%. But if you see the data, so there was a huge jump in services exports, which is 4.3, and there is a slightly increase in merchandise export, which is the 1.8%. So coming to the FDI inflows within the service sector. So here we can see different service sector has a different FDI inflows. So blue denotes the financial and gray denotes the insurance, and the longest bar graph we can see of the insurance. So this is the longest we have insurance. If you'll see in terms of the financial, so it is around 1 billion US dollar. So this is the thing. lowest we can see in the non-financial services, business services. So highest if they will ask in the insurance sector, and the lowest we can see in the non-financial services and business services. Then we'll come to the next one, which is about the chapter 9. Chapter 9 is about the agriculture and food management sector of the future. As you already know that agriculture and allied services are the backbone of the country. So here we'll have an overview about the agriculture. So the agricultural sector contributes approximately 16% of the country's GDP, and 46.1% of the population dependent and supports the agriculture, and they are into this agriculture and allied services. So here we can see the agriculture steady performance. So in the Q2 of 2024 and 2025, we can see that there was an increase. We'll see what will happen in Q3. But if we'll see the performance of 2023 and 2024, it was not up to the mark, especially the Q3 and Q4. So this is the thing. We are expecting better results into this year. So this also shows the steady growth. Then international comparison of productivity for selected crops. So total cereals if we'll see, so yellow here, the orange stands for India and the blue stands for the world. So total cereals what we can see in the kg per hectare. So here we can see in terms of India, so it is around more than 3000, whereas in the world it is around the above 4000 kg hectare. Here if we'll see in the pulses, so it is less than 1000, but in terms of world it is above 1000. Paddy, it is more than 3000 but less than 4000. Then maize, it is less than 3000, but the world is very much higher into this. It is more than it is around more than 5000. Then soybean also, then it is less than what we can see and it is around the 1000. And groundnut, so it is more than 1000 but less than 2000. And in this, so here in the groundnut, world and India are similar in nature. So here we have one schemes, and there is a portal. Here we are talking about the Kishan Rin portal and Kishan Rin portal. So we already have various schemes related to the borrowing, lending, loans. So what is this Kishan Rin portal? So it makes the process very much easy. So it has digitized, so there will be no more confusion, there will be the more transparency, and it avails and it helps the farmers and other stakeholders related to it to have a seamless transaction. So this is about the Kishan Rin portal. Now we'll discuss the another aspect, which is about the chapter 10. So chapter 10 is about the climate and environment adaptation matters. So here as you already know that in this particular chapter they had discussed about the various climate summits and various initiatives taken by the Indian government. So India's ambition to achieve developed nation status by 2047, we already had discussed that we are aspiring to become Viksit Bharat by 2047, and India's per capita carbon emission are 1/3 of the global average. So here we are bringing adaptation to the forefront. So India is the 7th most vulnerable country to climate change. It suffers weather extremes and hazards, and we can see that this year also we are witnessing so much of the shift in the weather and climate change. So because we have this issue of biodiversity loss, we have this sea level rise, we have this water insecurity, so we have these kind of environmental problem. So in order to maintain these kind of issues, the government has already launched various initiatives. So here we have taken few initiatives. So smart city mission, so we already know that smart city mission is a people centric mission in which they had focused on the technology, they had focused on the AI sector, they had focused on the wastewater management. Then we have urban river management plan, and they had also discussed about the MISTI initiative, which they had discussed in the Union Budget 2023 and 2024. And this MISTI initiative is for the development and for the taking care of the mangrove production and mangrove initiative of the country. So whenever in the exam there will be the question that MISTI initiative belongs to which. So MISTI initiative is related to the mangrove. Now we have another individual kind of initiative, which is Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam, and this is for the tea plantation, and it is very individual centric kind of thing, and it makes a very emotional appeals to have a individual centric environment care. So this is about the Ek Ped Maa Ke Naam. So we need such kind of emotional and individual initiative to support our these kind of climate change initiatives. Now we'll come to the discussion of chapter 11, and chapter 11 is about the social sector extending reach and driving empowerment. So as our eminent personality has also said that without social democracy we cannot reach to the political democracy and economic democracy. So here economic survey is about the economic freedom, the economic challenges, the economic opportunities. But amid all those economic challenges and opportunity, we must take care of the social sector, because if there will be no social well-being, there will be a significant impact on the economic thing also. So in this particular chapter, we are going to discuss about that how growth matters, and for the growth we need inclusive development. We need to take care of our social sector also. So here we have few things related to the expenditure on education and health. So here the blue is for the education and the green is for the health, and this is for the education. So what here we can see that there was a constant rise in both this sector, in terms of the education also, in terms of the health also. So here we can see in the rupees lakh crore, so from 5.9 lakh crore we have increased to 6.1 lakh crore, and here also we had increased to 9.2 lakh crore. So there is an upward direction into the expenditure in terms of education and health. But here we have to also see the allocation, that these money are fully allocated and fully utilized or not. So we have to also think into that direction, and it is reaching to the masses or not. This data is about the improving school infrastructure, so percentage of schools with the basic facilities out of total. So if we'll talk about the girls toilets, so here also we can see a significant improvement. So 97.2% of the schools has this girls toilet, boys toilet 95.7. So here also we have to work. Hand wash facility 94.7, library, reading room, reading corner 89, then electricity 91.8%, medical checkups in the school year 75.2%, computer 57.2%, and internet 53.9%. So what these data and graph tells us, so these data and graph tells us that we had improved in a lot in terms of library, in terms of toilets, but we still have a long way to go in terms of digital India and internet facilities and computer facilities, because we are lagging here behind also in terms of the medical checkups in the school, which is 75%. So these are the three areas which we have to work on. Now we'll discuss the next one, which is about the key pillars of the health policies. So various initiatives under national health missions, then national program for prevention and control of non-communicable diseases, then we have this Jan Aushadhi Kendras, then we have Prime Minister Jan Arogya Yojana, sub centers, primary health centers, community health centers, digital mission, UWIN portal, e-Sanjeevani. So these are the initiatives to strengthen our medical sectors, and we are also seeing that this year the government, last year the government has also announced that we are providing medical facilities for the people who are above the 70 years of the age, and across the apart from their economic scenario, there they are not calculating the that whether the person belongs to the economically weaker section or not. The person who are the above 70 years of the age, so government is going to give them a medical benefit. So here we can see in terms of the hospital, so 30,000 hospital impaneled, 13,352 private facilities impaneled, 49% of the card holders are women, 48% hospital admissions are utilized by the women. So here we can see that women are also taking advantage of the government facilities, This is about the progress of rural infrastructure development scheme. So in terms of the road, we can see that 99% of the targeted habitation provided connectivity, and here we can see the road development under the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana. Then we have under the housing 2.69 crore houses completed since 2016 under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Gramin. Then water bodies 68,843 Amrit Sarovars constructed under Mission Amrit Sarovar. Then in terms of the health infrastructure, National Health Mission, so 1.16.6 sub-centers, then primary health centers we have, then community health centers. So here we can see in terms of the drinking water, so drinking water 12.2 crore household provided with a tap water connection under the Jal Jeevan Mission. So what all these data showing that we are constantly improving in terms of the roads, in terms of the housing, water bodies, health infrastructure. So this data is showing that even women are also taking participation, and also the rural area is also improving under various rural initiatives. Now we'll discuss the chapter 12. The chapter 12 is about the employment and skill development existential priorities. So employment in an economy determines how economic growth sustainably percolates the masses, and which around 26% of the population in the age group of 10 to 24 years, India stands at the cusp of one in a lifetime demographic opportunity. It means that this is a very positive aspect of India, that India is youngest nation of the world. So as one of the youngest nation of the world, and in 2014 India was ranked as the 10th largest economy in the world, but right now we had also surpassed the greatest economy, and we had surpassed the UK to reach the 4th position, and we are also aiming that by 2030 we can reach to the 3rd position. So government initiative to boost female entrepreneurs. So we have this formalization of enterprises. 63% of the 2.41 crore enterprises formalized since 2023 are women owned. Then skill development, over 21,600 women trained in coir manufacturing in 5 years. Marketing support, women's trade fair participation is fully subsidized. Then PM employment guarantee, 41% of the loans were sanctioned to the women. And procurement, 3% of procurement of CPSEs reserved for the women. Access to credit, women entrepreneurs receive 90% of the guarantees versus 75% of the others. So here what we can see, that there has been a special focus given to the women businessmen, women entrepreneurs, and government is constantly working into this direction, especially into the micro, small and medium enterprises. So coming to the next one is about the matrix of mismatch between education, skills and occupation, and this is in terms of the percentage. So we have this constant problem that we have the workforce, we have the job also, but there is a mismatch of the skill. So occupational skill of the workers, primary education or 10 years of education or informal education, elementary skill 32.13%, semi skill 66.3%, high competency skills 0.39, specialized skills 1.28. So what this data is about? This data is about they are good at elementary semi skilled, but they have to work into the high competency skill and specialized skills. So we need to develop specialized skills among our workforce. Secondary education, so 19.25, semi skills 72.1%, high competency 2.79, specialized skill 5.7. Graduate degree, so here we can see a better data. So here we can see that they 38.2.3% of the people have this specialized skill. And if we'll talk about the postgraduate, so the percentage has reached more, which is 63.26. So what this data shows us, that we need more education to have a specialized skill. So that's why education is important to have a specialized skills. So coming to the next one. Next one is about the chapter 13, and chapter 13 is about labor in the AI era, crisis or catalysis. So this has been a wider concern for the whole world, that AI, artificial intelligence is coming, and there is a constant gap between the skill and AI, and it is snatching the job of the labor. and this has been a concern throughout the world also. Recently, India has also quoted data of the IM into this particular economic survey that most of the highly teched people who are very highly tech and who are very skilled in terms of the technology, they are also having this kind of the fear that they can be replaceable by the artificial intelligence. So this is a matter of concern, and so many countries, not just India, even the advanced economies are also having concern that there will be the loss of job. And so in this economic survey, they had suggested few measures that how we can improve into this direction, and how we can remove the fear among the labor that if such technologies are coming, then how we can make utilization of such kind of the labor force. So in this, the economic survey has highlighted about there can be a smooth landing of all the laborers who are not competent to use such kind of the skills. So we can train them, and we can utilize their labor force into the other direction. Also, if we have this potential that we can see that these set of laborers can learn the technologies, so we can train them. So there will be a separate thing for the training, and we need not to make an environment of panic so that workers can panic because of the advent of AI. So these are the suggestions have been given by the economic survey, which we have to work that how we can prevent the fear of AI among the labor. So this is about that. So now we'll come to the practice question for prelims. Which of the following statement regarding the industrial infrastructure growth in India is correct? The manufacturing sector is expanding rapidly due to strong global demand. Infrastructure development is a key focus with a high investment in roads, railways and power. The private sector is driving most infrastructure investment while the government is reducing its role. India has fully transitioned to the renewable energy and replacing coal-based power. So this you have to answer into the comment section. And what is the overview of this whole particular economic survey? So what I have read and what I have analyzed, and various newspaper and news portals are also saying that this time the government has focused more on the resilience of the export sector. Also, they had highlighted the achievement of the service sector. They had also highlighted that how we need to improve our FDI sector, how we can attract more investment into the FDI and various other sectors. The government and economic survey has focused on the climate change and clean energy. They had focused on the elementary education, they had focused on the social security, they had focused on the AI, the good and bad part of the AI, how we can take and how we can curb the problems related to the AI. Then we had also analyzed that how education is important for the specialized skills. Then we had a problem with our manufacturing sector. So overall the conclusion is that we have to give a special attention to our secondary sector, manufacturing sector. We have to give a special attention to the agriculture sector also, because service sector is performing well. And the if we'll talk about that what would be the concluding point of this whole discussion, so the concluding point of this whole discussion is that amid all the geopolitical tensions and conflicts around the world, the growth of India is stable. So that's it for today's session. I hope you like this session. If you have any queries related to the session, kindly ask into the comments section. And you should not worry about that I do not remember this particular data, that I need to remember this particular data in crores or lakh crores or million or billion. The exact data is not much important. You just have an overview that this country is performing better, this country is performing less, and in this direction, in this sector we are performing less, in this sector we are performing more. So you should have an overview to have that how our economy is performing and what lessons we have to take to make our economy better, and how India can achieve the target of the Viksit Bharat. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.